think 2, 3, 4 years ago, if a man claims the identity of simply saying they are a woman, walks into a locker room, a DA would follow this man into a locker room, arrest him, and he's charged with sexual harassment, voyeurism, indecent exposure, and the list goes on. But this was celebrated. This was encouraged. Leah Thomas was then nominated for NCAA Woman of the Year, which is an award that I was also nominated for. But when I saw the full list of nominees and saw that NCAA Woman of the Year was not exclusive to just women, the award was immediately devalued and meaningless to me. That's how they were honoring this, rather than making us feel reassured in our feelings that this was wrong.
When you accommodate men time and time again, refusing to accommodate women, we call that misogyny.
And Riley, I want to come to you. Riley is a Tennessean, and we are so incredibly proud of her work and the job that she is doing. And one thing that I have noticed repeatedly over the last few years is this administration's intent that they continue to push forward. Erasing the word woman, their intent when it comes to ending Title IX and ending the ability for young girls. You know, in Tennessee, I talk a lot about the Lady Vols, a great basketball team with such a great history, and that how important it has been to young girls. When I talk to girls that have played on that team, they talk about the impact that being able to be a Lady Vol and what that had on their life, what that impact was to them personally and professionally. And they talk about the opportunities that were open to them because they were a Lady Vol. They were a competitor. And I say all the time, there are hundreds of young girls that are out there at their home beating that basketball against the backboard and the blacktop and trying to hone their craft so they can be a competitor. They can be an athlete. And I was so disappointed that this administration, the Department of Education, went so far as to propose a rule allowing biological males to compete in women's sports. And Riley, you've referenced the impact of on young girls that this has and how it is kind of defeating, not only to when you are competing, but when you're preparing. And you reference the amount of work that you do, that 5 a.m. swimming, that 5 o'clock dinner, and the way you're double tracking to be a competitor and also get an education. So I want you to talk a little bit about the impact that keeping Title IX and what Title IX meant to you is you were that young girl training, hoping to get a college scholarship, hoping that you would be an NCAA college athlete. Talk about that.
Absolutely. It's far bigger than athletic achievement, and I think that's something that gets lost, especially when we only have a few minutes to share our testimony. I shared how I didn't get the trophy, but let me reiterate, it's not about the trophy. I didn't care about holding the tangible object of the probably $5 production trophy. It's about the opportunity. It's about the lifelong skills and characteristics you develop from playing sports. Playing sports, aside from my faith, I put a lot of this in my faith, but playing sports has given me the leadership to do this, the security to take the arrows, to be held hostage. It's playing sports that has given me that confidence, and no girl should lose out on that. It is far bigger than athletic success or chances for opportunity. It is about those transferable skills. There was an Ernst & Young study that came out that said 94% of female C-level executives, so CEO, COO, CFO, 94% of those females were female athletes. And I think that is a entirely true testament of what it means to be an athlete and those skills that it provides you. And I want to mention really briefly, the rewrite of Title IX is an abomination. It is equating sex to gender identity, which means men would live in dorm rooms with women, men would have full access to bathrooms, changing areas, locker rooms. Men could join sororities, which we're seeing happening. It's happening at University of Wyoming. Men could take academic and athletic scholarships away from women. In this new rewrite, it's actually sexual harassment. If you misgender a trans-identified individual, it's sexual harassment. That if you're in a dorm room and you're a woman and you feel uncomfortable sharing this dorm room, if you complain and ask to be moved, you're guilty of sexual harassment.
And you mentioned the transferable skills. I think that is so vital. Give me like the top 3 skills that you developed by learning to be a competitive athlete.
I think especially being 2-year team captain at University of Kentucky, I would say the top 3 skills I learned were teamwork, communication, and leadership, without a doubt. And those are skills that translate to your career. I graduated with every intent on being in dental school. Actually, what I wanted to do is endodontics. I scored in the top percentile of the DAT, which is the dental admissions test. And that's what I thought my life direction was going. And those 3 skills I mentioned, teamwork, leadership, and communication, would have been crucial to becoming a dentist. And now I realize in my advocacy work, they're just as crucial in this field as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Title IX was a landmark civil rights law. It helped create the incredible breadth of women's sports and girls' sports that we see across the country. I believe in girls' sports. I believe in women's sports. I'm the proud father of 2 daughters who are both athletes. I think participating in competitive sports is a wonderful thing for a young girl. I think it is a wonderful thing for a woman. And I think, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has decided that women's sports and girls' sports no longer matters, and they're willing to push radical legislation designed to destroy girls' sports and women's sports. Ms. Gaines, I want to thank you for your courage. You are relatively young, but you have demonstrated incredible courage. And because you have dared to speak up, you have been demonized, you have been vilified. I saw when you were attacked by a leftist mob at San Francisco State University for daring to speak up. You had an incredible record as a swimmer at the University of Kentucky. You were a 2-time NCAA All-American. You were a 5-time SEC champion. You're an SEC record holder and a 2-time Olympic trial qualifier. But yet on March 27th, 2022, something changed. What happened on March 17th, 2022?
That's when Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle and again resulted in a tie.
And so you tied. What was the consequence of tying?
We went behind the awards podium where typically you're handed your trophy, you're marched out, you're named an All-American. And so we go back there and the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, but you guys tied. And we only have 1 trophy, therefore we're giving this trophy to Leah." And I question this and I say, why? And at first I shortened it in my testimony, but really he stumbled on his words. He didn't know how to answer this. And at first he's, well, we're just doing this in chronological order. To which I further pressed, and I said, okay, well, what are you being chronological about? Because we tied. And if we're doing this off alphabetical order, G comes before T, so what are you being chronological about? To which this wasn't a script they had prepared for him. And he actually appreciated his honesty. He did say, we have to give the trophy for Leah because Leah has to have it for pictures. They've made that clear. Leah has to have the trophy for pictures. You can pose with this trophy, but you have to give yours back. You have to go home empty-handed. Leah Thomas takes the trophy home. End of story.
Now, let me ask you, as someone who's competed at the elite level, in your experience, is there a difference between women and men?
Of course. I think we learned this at a very young age, watching even 12 and unders play. Going through puberty causes irreversible advantage, that no matter the training, no matter the diet, no matter any alterable change you can make, will overcome that male advantage. Especially in sports like swimming, where lung capacity matters so much. Even something as silly as throat size, men have on average a 40% larger throat, which sounds like it's nothing, but when you're grasping for air, that 40% larger throat makes a huge difference in athletic success, not to mention height. You guys know the differences.
Ms. Gaines, I'd like to start with you, if I could. And thanks again for sharing your story. I've been touched and saddened to hear of the misogynistic and discriminatory treatment that you received from the NCAA, which I regard as nothing short of shameful. You've handled it with grace and courage, and I appreciate that example that you're setting for so many women and girls across America. Your story reminded me of a letter that I received from a constituent a couple of years ago, a constituent who explained to me her own story with girls and women's athletics. She explained that she would never have been able to go to college, never would have had a chance at a college education had she not done so under an athletic scholarship. And while she was in college, she became the most dominant female track athlete in the state of Utah. And she was a two-time All-American sprinter who held the 100-meter record at BYU for 22 years. She told me that even at the height of her collegiate year, as one of the top female sprinters in the country, she would sometimes go to help her dad, who coached high school track, and she would go to those events with her dad. She said even then, the high school boys could beat her because of biological differences between people who were born male and people who were born female. So what would you say to all the high school female athletes who worry about losing potential college scholarships? To say nothing of the world in which we now face, name, image, likeness, endorsements, things like that, all the things that they might forego as a result of having to compete for scholarships, endorsements, and notoriety with people who were born male.
My message would be that it's not transphobic to acknowledge how women deserve respect, how we deserve safety, how we deserve fairness, we deserve keeping our dignity. It's not transphobic to say that. It's not transphobic to say that you can't change your sex. Sex is down to a chromosomal level, and that's not something that can be changed, and that matters in sports. Your biology, sports is the one area where your sexual chromosomes matter. And again, I'll echo Harley's message as well, as you're not alone. The overwhelming majority of people regarding this issue of fairness in women's sports agree that having men in women's sports is wrong and that it's unfair and it's a violation to, again, our privacy and rights to safety as women. So that would be my message, to be bold, be empowered, and before anything, stand firm in the truth, biological truth.
Are you transphobic, Riley?
That is simply not true.
Do you hold anything against transgendered persons?
Absolutely not. I agree Leah Thomas was following the rules set in place by the NCAA, and I have no problem with Leah Thomas. I do believe there's a bit of selfishness and narcissism and entitlement surrounding this person in regards to the utter disregard that Thomas displayed for us in these situations. But I have no animosity towards Thomas. My problem is the NCAA. My problem is the Biden administration pushing a rewrite of Title IX. That is my problem, and that's why I'm here. That's why this issue has become political for me, because I realize that legislation is the way you curb these things. I can't believe it's come to this, but I have no hate in my heart towards anyone, even the protesters who mobbed me. The first thing that I did was prayed for them. I saw the soullessness, the vengeance, the violence in their eyes, and they do it in the name of love and inclusion and acceptance and tolerance and welcoming and embracing diversity, but they did not embrace my diverse thought. That, to me, was what hate looked like. Nothing in my heart is hateful.
How about the NCAA? Did the NCAA embrace your diversity? Tell me what attempts that the NCAA made to accommodate you and other female swimmers who felt uncomfortable sharing an open locker room with a biological male? Nothing.
They actually made us feel guilty for feeling as if we were uncomfortable. Time and time again, that's what we saw. There was even a group of girls who undressed in the janitor's closet. They changed clothes in the janitor's closet because they felt more comfortable undressing in that environment than they did undressing next to someone with male gaze.
And were they doing that because they were transphobic?
They were doing it because they were violated.
Tell me how they were violated.
I think 2, 3, 4 years ago, if a man claims the identity of simply saying they are a woman, walks into a locker room, a DA would follow this man into a locker room, arrest him, and he's charged with sexual harassment, voyeurism, indecent exposure, and the list goes on. But this was celebrated. This was encouraged. Leah Thomas was then nominated for NCAA Woman of the Year, which is an award that I was also nominated for. But when I saw the full list of nominees and saw that NCAA Woman of the Year was not exclusive to just women, the award was immediately devalued and meaningless to me. That's how they were honoring this, rather than making us feel reassured in our feelings that this was wrong.
When you accommodate men time and time again, refusing to accommodate women, we call that misogyny. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.